now you have the whole AI thing going on, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on that whole phenomenon. I mean, Universal Music, I think they just put something out where they're going to, and I didn't go in depth in reading the article, but it was something along the lines that you can use someone else's voice to record or create a song or whatever the case may be. But I've heard some of these AI stuff, and I can tell it's definitely not that person.
I'm going to give you a great and topical reference. So, not to name drop here, but you can tell I'm wearing a golf shirt. I golfed today with Al Michaels, who is in the news because he is permitting his voice to be used in an AI thing for the Paris Olympics. Where he's going to, his voice will be copied and he'll do the daily recap of everything, or his AI will do the daily recap of everything, and then it will tee up whoever the local reporter is. And he did it because, it's an interesting way. A, he's making money for doing nothing, but B, it's sort of groundbreaking. But we were talking about it, and I get asked my day job. Obviously, AI has a huge influence at filmmaking and most creative businesses. Mm-hmm. But Al's his instantiation of AI gives me the perfect example. You'll get a guy that sounds like Al Michaels doing a perfectly good job of recapping today's events. You will never get a "Do you believe in miracles?" hot call, because that requires a human spark and ingenuity. Mm-hmm. And I think ultimately you'll see in music, AI will be used as an excellent tool. I mean, we like to leave the human element in Redemption, but there's an immense, if we wanted to spend 6 weeks in the studio, we would. This is not the 80s, and we don't have that kind of recording budget, so we need to make the best of what we can. Mm-hmm. And so there's work done cleaning drums, as an example, to make sure that they're, the tempo is pretty steady. And we don't take the human element out of it, but it takes a lot of work to clean drums. And also part of that is making sure if you have a tom that hits in the tom channel, you don't want that ringing out in your overheads and cluttering the mix. So there's an immense amount of work that goes into cleaning a drum performance, as an example. AI ultimately can make that really simple and shorten 100 hours of work into 2. So I think it'll be a great tool and a terrible master, kind of like money. Excellent servant, terrible master.
Yep.
And I think what makes this type of music enduring and so important is it really is human beings playing. It's not reduced to computer-generated crap, which is frankly a lot of what music is today. Not taking away from people that there are very talented people that perform in that milieu. This is, like the Foo Fighters are in the news for talking about they're doing the Errors tour rather than the Eras tour, because they're human beings and they make mistakes. And I think that's a hallmark of musicians playing this style of music. You take pride in what you do. You want to do it well, but you also recognize that it's the energy of creative human beings combining to make something great is what makes it special. Mm-hmm. Sorry to ramble there, Mark. I'm sure you
That's okay. Actually, I got goosebumps. I got goosebumps when you gave the miracles quote. I relived that whole thing. That's every time I hear that, you get goosebumps. But
yeah.
One of the things about being older is that, sooner or later I won't have to deal with it. The whole AI thing, to me, the biggest problem is that people are going to accept it as the norm. Just like now they're listening to earbuds on 29. Oh, I don't need to hear the first Rainbow record. I'm just going to go over here and, or somebody's going to quote, hey, here's stuff that sounds like Rainbow. And they copy it and twist it. And people don't know any better of what it was originally. So all of a sudden you might get to a point where it's like, okay, well, AI doesn't really cost anything compared to what you're going to have to do for a band. And if it's all about just people, quote, listening to music and buying it on Spotify and getting their subscription or whatever, that's the only thing that's a little leery to me. The whole AI thing has been around since the second the drum machine came into play. That's technically AI kind of thing. It's, it's the first step of taking the human touch out of music. And okay, we're just going to program it up on this thing, and away we go. And then you got into, auto-tune, you got into cutting to the grid, you got, beat. I didn't even know about this, but I guess there's something on all the DAWs called beat detector, where it can figure out your beat and then put it all like right there like that.
We don't talk to drummers about that tool, Mark.
Oh, do we? I was going to say that's cheating. I mean, like, because I'll never forget. This was a great kind of funny story. Warlord going in to deliver us. Okay, 8-track studio. The engineer's smoking crack cocaine the whole time. We don't know what the hell's going on, and we're just happy to be in the studio. And we're cranking out "Child of the Damned." And the engineer goes, "Hey, I got an idea. Let's put up a click track and see how that works." And it was like the first time a click track had ever been introduced. And I'll never forget being in that studio thinking, "Okay, Mark, when this is over, you'll be selling your drums and you'll be going back to being an accountant." But that whole thing of like learning in the step by step on how to get to where you are as compared to now, you can just push a button and it's kind of there.
By the way, there are not a lot of people that could play double bass, 140 beats per minute perfectly to a click when there's no ability to edit it for 4 minutes straight to this day. So give yourself a little credit.
Yeah. When it gets about 220, I got to say I'm done. I have these guys send me these tracks and it's a drum machine because it ain't Dave Lombardo. Okay. It's a drum machine. And I'm like, you're out of your freaking mind.
Yeah.
I go, my first question, half the time I watch different videos on YouTube or whatever, I just kind of go, why?
Yeah, who needs this?
Yeah, it's like the guy looks like he's having a stroke. I mean, it's like, why? Why are you doing that? But anyways, no, it's it's a great tool, and the only way probably that we've been recording over the last 10, 15 years is because of the computer. We don't have the time and the money to go into like real studios, and I mean, 70% of them are out of business, but it's a double-edged sword. But the AI thing, I think you guys probably saw that thing with Through Different Eyes or Dio singing a Fates Warning song. I don't know if you saw that, Nick.
No,
yeah, I saw that. I saw it.
I gotta look for it.
It's goofy. It's just goofy. That's all I can say. It's like, but the funny part of it is, if you played it to a 12 or 15-year-old kid and say, "Hey, man, this is Ronnie James Dio," he was.
They're not going to know the difference.
Warning. They're not going to know. So that's the only thing that kind of scares me, that it starts wingling its way in, and it's like, well, is it live or is it Memorex? That thing. So
I would agree with you guys, and it's funny. I was looking at recording budgets that, from like the 80s and the 70s. Some of these bands were spending like back in the late 70s or early 80s, $700,000, which obviously you adjust for inflation is a lot of money. Or looking at like Def Leppard spending like $3 million to record Hysteria back in late 80s money. I mean, imagine if like bands had those kind of recording budgets. I mean, it's pretty insane to think about now, back then. And, AI tools, they've been around a while. I mean, they've been around in photography for a very long time. I use them to edit videos. I use them to do photo restoration. If I go and tell AI, hey, I have a slide from this kind of film, it can give me, it's not 100%, but it'll give me about 75% of what it should look like, especially if it's faded. So you could do that now where, and that's ability's been around for a while, but now it seems like in the last like 3 years, man, this stuff is kind of taken off.
Here's a Nick Van Dyke story for you that reminds you very much, because this whole thing we're talking about now, I'm going kicking and screaming into it. Just I'm not into it at all. Just give me the drums. Just let me hit the record button, put the clip up. Let's play. I'm not into any kind of beat detection or any of that kind of stuff. Long time ago, Mr. Van Dyke over there was the first guy who gave me a computer, because I thought the computer thing was just going to be a fad. Okay, I'm going to stick with my heart, my outboard gear here, I'm good. And Nick gave me that first computer. I'll never forget it. And obviously, we all live in a computer now. So
what kind of computer did he give you?
I can't even remember.
It was a PC. No, you and Jill came over. I was living in Burbank, and the big thing, but it was like, oh wow, a computer. I wasn't using it.
I do remember, actually. Yeah, I don't remember exactly. But the irony here is that, not to just keep blowing smoke, but you're probably the person more responsible for the involvement of electronic drums in heavy music than anybody I can think of. So you may have called it by a different name, but you were experimenting with this stuff long before most people.
It's funny you say that. I've always thought that, and the funny part of it is even guys like Bert didn't play it with the acoustic at the same time. He would turn around and play that
That's right.
and then turn back around. Where I've always, and it started when I was playing with like Animotion or plain English and that whole thing. And then when I got into Fate's Warning, we had the triggers and we had the big rack and I had the different sounds and you play it within the thing. And on both A through Z records, all the electronics are played because the whole thought process is like, when we go play it live, what are you going to do? You know, have a program track? No, you're going to play it. So play it. And, you know, but I appreciate that, Nick.
I'm going to give you one more optimistic take on AI because it's come up in recent conversations in my what passes for a day job. When the camera got invented, I won't even make up a date. Whenever it got invented, all the people that were painters were like, "Oh, the world's ending," because the ability to now render something photorealistic replaced what they were doing. But that gave birth to Impressionism and ushered in 50 years of the greatest creativity in the history of art. Yep. So I think we're in very early innings here with AI. I think the best creators will use it as a tool, and it will probably unlock stuff we can't even conceptualize right now, hopefully for the better.
No, absolutely. Hopefully for the better.
Yeah, and sometimes things come full circle, right? I mean, everybody thought vinyl would never get made again, and now it's a lot more popular than it was, 20 years ago, right?
Yep. Yeah.
There's that whole aspect. I mean, even in photography, the digital camera, that was the end of film, and that had a resurgence because that's what I do. There's, a lot of times things come full circle, and it's hard to predict what the future is going to be. It is what it is. But I like your analogy, Nick. That's actually a very good one.
Good.
That's kind of interesting though, because the A through Z records were hopefully in that thing of coming back around again, where it has that kind of that 80s, 70s kind of thing that you don't really see this day and age. I mean, there's not bands out there. I mean, you have the legacy bands that are still out there doing their things, that were the originators of that style of music back then. But I don't hear too many new bands that are coming out that are playing that style of music. Mm-hmm. And I always thought it was very important to have it sound like nobody else. Yep. And just be that thing, and I always thought that was kind of like one of the main ingredients that you needed to be successful, is that you needed to be something like when they wanted to hear A through Z, they had to hear A through Z. They couldn't hear Johnny's band, Ricky's band, and Sammy's band and go, okay, I get the same fix.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
That's why it was a top 10 album for me when it came out for the year.
Cool.
So, well, I have one last question for you guys, and before we end this off, any last words to say to people anticipating this album coming out from either one of you? Any last words to say to any fans that are going to be checking it out?
I think that's another Mark answer. I will just say it has been like such a delight to work with Mark on this and see it come together, and I'm like beyond enthusiastic, but just in general, but particularly that Mark, whose body of work speaks for itself, is as jazzed about this as he is. The fact that he considers it a worthy addition to his discography, I think people are going to be pretty fired up when they hear it. It's really been a lot of fun.
Don't let Nick downplay that, because he's probably more of this than I am with the songwriting and the guitar playing, because as much as I think the drums are cool and they're cute and everything, that's not a record. And, and there needs to be a foundation. His contribution, I mean, he gave me life back, because the A through Z thing was basically flat on the floor. And with that, I'm eternally grateful. And I just had this feeling that it was going to be great, just because, you deal with professional people, you deal with responsible people. And, I learned, you really need to surround yourself, with your friends, your family, and the people that you love, that that are going to be there. It's like, hey, Mark, I'm not really digging this part. Can you change this? Okay, cool. Let's not do it. And then 6 months later, you're holding a grudge or something. I mean, it's like, it was just such a great experience. And Nick's all over this record. I mean, like nobody's business all over. A different side, I think, than people are going to see. I think this is going to attract more to a heavy crowd and also to a little bit more of a progressive crowd per se, because it definitely gets in there and does its thing. So we're all very, very excited about it. And, you know, I couldn't be happier with the results. I listen to it every day and I'm super excited. And again, like I said, I text Nick way too much, but it's my enthusiasm. So
makes my day, buddy. Tony, you're going to have us back on when this comes out, I hope.
Absolutely. And just so you guys know, I'm not going to downplay the fact that I was pretty excited to find out that you two will be working on this album. So we'll just.
I'm glad to hear that. I hope some people are pretty tickled by it. And of course, we barely mentioned the fact. I mean, it's great to work with Ray again as well. I think there's a special chemistry that Mark and Ray obviously have had for many, many years. But it's nice to triangulate, given the fact that Ray and I worked together so well for so long, and it's it's
like the dysfunctional family here. You got people coming in and going out, and this guy, there's definitely a connection there. I mean, let's face it. You go back to the very, very early Fates Warning days and stuff, and hanging out in LA in the studios when Ray was living there, and all that kind of stuff, and all the dealings that you had with him for the records that you did. So it's not incestuous, but it's definitely connected. That's a good word. Not disconnected, but it's connected.
I like the analogy, guys. Well, hey, I'm going to hit stop here in a second, but it was great having you both on. Seriously.
Thanks, Tony. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.